Have you ever been to Armenia? Well, if this video found you in New York State and you make less than 100K, you might as well be there right now. Welcome to part 15 of the United States might as well be 50 third world countries stacked up in a trench coat. In my opinion, the state of New York is two different third world countries. The state of New York and then New York City are two different universes. The issue with New York is kind of the issue with the country. We have wealthier areas due to income distribution that make it look a whole lot better than it actually is. When we look beyond what 1 out of 5 residents in New York State actually make, the outcomes start to mirror Armenia's pretty closely. The state of New York averages a life expectancy of about 80 years, thanks to those richer areas. If we hone in on some of these upstate areas, some of these individual places, life expectancy can drop by close to 5-6 years. And then you're right in line with Armenia. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that if you're not making more than 80% of New Yorkers, you might be in one of these areas. In my opinion, what makes this worse is to be an area with a 26%, maybe 23% poverty rate in comparison to the state of New York's 14, the health outcomes are not necessarily better. On infant mortality, Armenia does edge y'all out by a number of 2. And on maternal mortality, their rate stays under 20. New York's rate is anywhere from 20 to 30. You know how much money is in New York? That's crazy. You would have some things to deal with if you were born in Armenia as opposed to being born in New York and just making less than 100K. However, areas in New York that are most affected by these issues are also dealing with a very serious opioid crisis. In Armenia, they don't have that problem. They have other problems, but they don't have that problem. And with an obesity rate that's close to 10% less than the average in New York State, for all of the less resources that they have, they do end up being a bit more healthy. If you were born poor in Armenia, you would have access to over 300 doctors per 100,000 people. In New York, whether you're rich or poor, you only have access to 100 doctors per 100,000 people. Who do you think gets the most and best care based on that? And so if you make less than 100K and you live in the state of New York, I don't say this to ask you when you plan to move to Armenia. I do say this to ask what place sounds more developed. Because at the end of the day, if you're not making more than 80% of New Yorkers, you get to very similar outcomes as a developing nation. Go ahead and put your state in the comments if you want me to do yours next. I'm gonna go ahead and knock out New York City after this one. Shoot me a follow if you want to see when I do yours.